On the 9th of November 1841, King Edward VII was born Albert Edward to Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. He was known to the family simply as Bertie and was the couple's second child, their daughter Vicky having been born in 1840. He was subjected to a strict regime from an early age, as his parents were keen to ensure that he was prepared to rule. He attended both Oxford and Cambridge and briefly joined the army. A liaison with an actress called Nellie Clifton in 1861 caused considerable scandal, and in the autumn Prince Albert visited his son at Cambridge. It was November 25th, and the two were walking together in the pouring rain, whilst Albert explained how horrified he and the Queen felt about the situation. On his return to Windsor, Albert began to feel unwell, and his condition worsened greatly, and on the 14th of December 1861, Albert died in the presence of his wife and 5 of their 9 children. Victoria was grief-stricken and partly blamed her son for the death of his father. She later wrote in her diary, "That boy, I never can or ever shall look at him without a shudder." After this traumatic time, Edward was sent off on a 4-month tour of the Middle East. It was a royal tour designed to prepare a young prince for the future role as king, but also a means of getting him out of the way after his scandalous fling with the actress. Edward had never enjoyed a warm relationship with his mother, and for the next 40 years it would be frosty indeed, and to keep her son and heir from further trouble, the Queen embarked on a desperate remedy of marriage, and royal houses of Europe were searched high and low for a suitable bride. The winning candidate was the beautiful Alexandra of Denmark, and they were married in 1863. Although they were happy together, she held no sway over her husband, and her role as wife was limited to childbearing and attractive appearances on state occasions. He, however, loved having a good time, and his passions for girls, gambling, and gluttony reflected the extreme indulgency of the society in which he moved in. In a golden state coach of his ancestor, King George III, Edward arrived at Westminster Abbey and was crowned King Edward VII on the 9th of August 1902 in a dazzling display of pomp and pageantry. Edward VII expected the ceremony to be one of perfection. He researched every detail of it with great care and concern. He wanted to send a message to the entire empire that they had a new emperor with all the pomp that could be mustered. Almost overnight, Edward had transferred the face of the monarchy. Out went the old stuffy dowdy image of his mother's reign, and in came his modernistic grand showcase style. He at once went about making changes to Buckingham Palace and was determined to bring light into the place. He hired technicians to install electric lights and theatre designers to transfer Buckingham Palace into a sea of white and gold. Out went pictures of Albert and the dogs, all the clutter removed, swept aside, and all to make way for a grand palace fit for a king. For the rest of his life, the king continued to enjoy all the luxuries of his position, with Mrs. Keppel, his mistress, always by his side. Queen Alexandra had little choice but to put up with her husband's behaviour. In 1903, completely ignoring his government, he went to France and started negotiations for a treaty that would go on to become the Entente Cordiale, isolating Germany. He detested his nephew, the Kaiser, and he persuaded the press and the government to back a treaty which guaranteed that if Germany attacked France, Britain would go to war. The treaty was ratified in London on April 8, 1904. And on June 9, 1908, Edward became the first ever British monarch to visit Russia, where he met his nephew Nicholas II, the Tsar of Russia, along with other members of his extended family. The arrival of Edward to Russia was considered as a necessary royal confirmation of the recently negotiated Anglo-Russian Entente in 1907. Similar to the French Entente, in this pact Britain and Russia settled their colonial disputes in Persia, Afghanistan and Tibet. This agreement brought the Triple Entente into existence, an important alignment of Great Britain, France and Russia. Trouble was looming in Europe. War clouds were gathering. Edward could foresee this. His nephew, the Kaiser, was intent on building up military superiority, and to counteract this, Edward threw his support behind the admirals arguing for a new generation of warship, the Dreadnought. This in turn yielded results, and by pressing his ministers too, the build-up of the British Navy went full steam ahead. In 1909, Edward was involved in a constitutional crisis brought about by the refusal of the Conservative majority in the Lords to pass the Liberal budget. But before this could be resolved, events took a different direction. At 69 years old, his high living was now catching up with him, already seriously ill with chronic emphysema. In 1910, the king suffered a series of heart attacks. As he slipped in and out of consciousness in Buckingham Palace, he was joined by two women, his long-suffering wife, Queen Alexandra, and his mistress, Alicekeppel. He died just before midnight on the 10th of May, 1910. He was the first British monarch to lie in state at Westminster Hall, where thousands queued to pay their respects, and his style of a modern public monarchy, together with his racy lifestyle, earned him the admiration of his people.